So looking at fitness training as a series of skill acquisitions and putting it in a functional context can just make you feel a little more connected to the whole process. Because in my mind, training is ultimately about being capable in times of need, just in case something happens. My name's Andrew Moore. I'm a personal trainer and movement coach from Toronto, Canada. And my goal with this channel is to bring mindfulness and intention to fitness training and movement in general. So something I've been thinking about lately with regards to fitness training is to treat it as a series of skill acquisitions rather than something that is good in and of itself. And there's obvious benefits to training, and I think most of us are pretty aware of them. You get stronger and things become easier in your everyday life. Your cardio goes up and your endurance goes up in everyday life. So you can hike further, you can walk up the stairs without going out of breath. You become more mobile and you don't throw your back out tying your shoes. There's pretty obvious benefits to fitness training that are built into the fact that you are moving your body, often under load, and in ways that go outside of the demands of your everyday life. But treating fitness as a set of skills allows you to learn movements and apply them to everyday life. Treating it as a set of skills will make you more capable in times of need. So slowing down and spending time in each session and become a little more mindful about the movements that you're learning will allow you to connect with your body and be able to move with intention. When you do ramp up the intensity for, a circuit or something like that, you'll have a bit more of an idea of how to perform the movement efficiently and, with function in mind. So with a kettlebell swing, for example, you're building power in the hips, in the hamstrings, you're building core strength, you're building grip strength. Your shoulders are working just by virtue of holding the kettlebell. So there's all this muscular development that's happening. That's very beneficial and it's good in and of itself. But what you're also doing is learning to selectively tense the muscles in a way that can be applicable in situations outside of just doing a kettlebell swing. So if you're an athlete doing a kettlebell swing, it might actually help you to run faster and become more explosive and to become generally more athletic. But at the same time, that selective tension of the muscles, the loading up the hips and then immediately slingshotting back repeatedly has carryover into other areas of life. Like I live in Canada, so in the winter, we often have to shovel snow. And I think that my use of fitness tools like kettlebells has had a lot of carryover in that being able to selectively tense the muscles, pick up the snow and generate power, throw the snow, and then kind of relax and then get back into position and do it over and over again. That skill has been bolstered by my experience with implements like kettlebells, either through swings or snatches or cleans, where you're sort of selective where you're putting the tension in your muscles and being able to bring it back to a state of pseudo relaxation. But I think being able to distill it into this sort of functional paradigm can be very useful, I think, for a lot of people, especially those who are maybe a little more, allergic to the gym. Likewise, with something like a jump, like say box jumps are a very popular exercise, especially in circuit classes. I think that understanding the mechanics of jumping and slowing it down and being mindful with executing each jump efficiently and safely, because the landing of the jump is where most of the injuries happen. Putting your focus on those mechanics first will really pay back in the long run, because you'll be able to ramp up the intensity and the volume, because a lot of those classes will have you just banging out sets and reps of box jumps. You'll be able to do it and know that you're not going to hurt your knee, you're not going to sprain your ankle, you're not going to fall, because you've taken the time beforehand to connect with the movements so that you understand what you're being asked to do. Because essentially, a box jump is learning to scale an object quickly. I think that can often get overlooked because, again, we're thinking about these as a way to sweat and a way to kind of up our conditioning, which is good. I think there's nothing wrong with that. But I think putting it into context gives us a little bit of an anchor point to just kind of constantly return to, just to keep us grounded and to keep us focused on what we're training for. Because in my mind, training is ultimately about being capable in times of need. You hope you aren't called upon to use some of these skills, but you want to know that you're capable just in case something happens. The last thing you want is you're out on a hike and somebody hurts themselves and they can't walk back to the head of the trail, and you and the other people in your party are unable to carry them back, and you have to call for help, and that can just make things really messy. So I think always grounding our training in this kind of pursuit of skill acquisition, I think can keep us really grounded and very intentional with how we program. The last example I'll give is something like a Turkish get-up. I think it's an incredible exercise, and it gives you a series of positions to move through should you find yourself on the ground, either intentionally or unintentionally after a fall. It gives you these steps that you can move through to get yourself back up to standing. And ideally, you do it under load, which raises your capacity to do it without load. So if you fall on the ground and you're not hurt and you can use your muscles, you can sort of take yourself through each of the steps of the Turkish get-up to return to standing, and it makes you more functional. Now, there are other amazing benefits of the Turkish get-up. It really helps develop your core. It develops your shoulder stability. So for hypertrophy, it's not the most useful exercise, but for just overall functionality, I think you'd be hard-pressed to find another exercise that trains a skill that becomes more and more useful as we age, getting up off the ground. Because as a lot of us know, falls become more likely as we age, and we want to make sure that we maintain our ability to get up and down from the ground because we want to offset the risk of hurting ourselves, or at least being stuck if we do find ourselves on the ground. So looking at fitness training as a series of skill acquisitions and putting it in a functional context can give you a sense of duty around training and showing up and being mindful and having some connection to the movement outside of the gym environment, and kind of setting an intention with each movement can just make you feel a little more connected to the whole process. And at the end of the day, I think fitness training is about building connection with the world around you. You can go explore a little more when you feel more physically capable. You can connect with others, both through having experiences like going on long hikes or long walks, or even in like a sports context if somebody says, hey, let's go play Frisbee. So yeah, I think at the end of the day, it's all about connection and trying to connect with the world around you and the people around you. So that's the video. If you liked what I had to say, it would be great to hear from you. And if you want to keep up with what I'm putting out there in the world, maybe subscribe to my channel, and I will see you next time.